Okay, welcome to another episode of the Essential Craftsmen podcast. I'm Nate. I've got my dad here and also Zane Cook. Zane is an instructor at the Northwest College of Construction in Portland, Oregon. This is a trade school. We're talking all about education in the trades, getting started in an apprenticeship program. I hope you enjoy the discussion. Without any further ado, let's get into it. Most people have heard of a trade school, but that's maybe all they know. So kind of
right.
How do you give the overview to prospective parents or prospective students about what type of a school that is?
For the older age group, they would understand it as a trade school for sure. I think CTE or there's different terminologies that are kicked around these days. It's a non-profit, non-union trade school.
Yeah. Wow. And so it's run from donations or from sponsors or something, or how's
both? Yeah. There's so let's see. We have ABC, AGC, NWCOC, and HBA are some of the bigger organizations that help.
So flesh out any of those acronyms that you can.
So ABC is Associated Building Contractors. They're a national organization, independent. And then there is AGC, which is
Associated General Contractors.
Yes, and I think and I don't want to put my foot in my mouth here, but I think it is a mix, a slight more mix. There is some union presence there.
I think so.
But I think it's just an overarching organization for the trades period. And then there is NWCOC, which is Northwest Utility Contractors.
Oh.
And so we call it NWCOC, but it's actually, that's not the proper acronym.
Yeah.
So
Right,
it's just
right.
easier to say.
Sure.
And then HBA's Home Builders Association, if I got that right.
Yep.
Outside of that, the kind of meat and potatoes of the thing comes from roughly 250 independent builders and contractors that essentially are paying for the tuition of the students or the apprentices.
Greater Portland metro area?
Yes, actually Northwest.
Really?
Yeah. Anybody who wants to get involved off the street or a referral or what have you, they just come in and they put in an application. It's pretty easy to get involved.
Fill out the application and
Yes.
pretty much they're in.
Well,
Sort of.
kind of.
Kind
yeah.
of,
I mean, you've got to pass your analysis, your P-test,
Right.
whatever. On a really extreme situation, we might ask someone to leave,
Sure.
this kind of thing. But for the most part, it's pretty easy to
Yeah, if
get
somebody
involved.
shows up
Yeah.
and they're disruptive or they're not moving the program forward, you don't need them, right? And they wouldn't make it on a job site
and,
anyway.
It's kind of like economics, right? Malinvestment will find its way
Yeah.
out the door. The tuition is free.
Wow.
The builders and the contractors are paying a certain fee per however many apprentices they are going to want or need,
Okay.
so that they can do, these public works jobs, state
Right.
jobs, et cetera. And for that fee, that goes into kind of the bucket, the fund for
That keeps the school running.
keeps the school running.
So Kelly and I drove up there and I got a chance to speak to a couple classes.
Yes.
2 or 3 classes. It was great. It was a pretty diverse bunch. There were some younger kids there who weren't exactly sure what was going on. It was a POIC thing where they were just coming in just to get a look at what a saw was and how a shovel worked, and just to have some conversation about what construction even consisted of, just for their own sort of horizon, just to move their horizons out a little bit. And then I was speaking to was there like 32 or 33 actual first year apprentices.
Yeah, that was my carpentry one.
Yeah,
class.
and that was
Yes.
that was a great experience. I've never spoken to a room full of apprentices before, and they had smart questions and they were leaning forward and paying attention. So that's how we got acquainted. And part of our initial conversation was that a big part of the driver for the school was to help non-union contractors have access to public works jobs in the state of Oregon, because the state of Oregon requires an apprenticeship training program for the people who are on those public works jobs. Is that right?
Yeah, in layman's terms, that works.
Okay.
And there's some details that honestly I'm not totally equipped to answer. We do have a BOLI, a compliance officer, who works there on site So I do the workforce stuff, outreach and events and, hands-on activities, as well as being an instructor. So I drive around quite a bit and do a lot of that stuff with high schools and other events, this kind of thing. Katrina Cloud is the bully compliance end of the deal, and she works with me with the workforce program as well. So she kind of understands the metrics of what the state needs to see by the builders and contractors.
I see.
And keeping all of us, them and us, all in compliance with what the state needs.
To spell that out, the state won't award a contract to a construction company unless that company, along with their workman's comp and all the other insurances, they need to have a jobs apprenticeship training program as part of their organization, and basically they can put you guys down as their
provider
of that service.
Yes.
Wow.
That's cool.
This has got to be the most productive nonprofit impact I've ever heard of, with all of these valuable contributions. This is the most real world helpful, valuable
win.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I've been there roughly 2 years, and it was amazing to me too. I've been a contractor and a builder in Portland for roughly 14, 15 years. And I think I just kind of caught wind of the school even being around.
Yeah.
I heard College of Construction, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. And I thought, I almost laughed. I might have laughed.
What could that be? Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah.
And, but no, it's real. And I work there now. So
wow.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
And, while there's all these great wins about it, there's still yet another one. There's the free tuition. There's job placement. So you come in, it's absolutely free. It's not free to somebody, but it's free to the apprentice. Then they get the job placement. So we literally put them into a job, and then on top of that, they're going to get their Journey Workers card, the Journeyman's card, and it's good in all 50 states.
Okay.
All of North America and 17 other countries.
Wow.
Is that right?
That's a big deal.
Is that for every trade, or a framing, a journeyman framing? Is that specifically?
Yeah. So 9 different trades.
Oh, okay.
Kind of 8.5, I say. So we've got laborers, carpenters, heavy equipment operators, sheet metal, HVAC, concrete masons, or masons, brick masons, and then we have concrete finishers, sign hangers, and then I say 8.5. It's 9 because there's some sub trades in there that, like welding, for instance, is a certification process through the state. You don't necessarily, it doesn't have its own union anywhere.
Oh, okay.
But it's a great credential.
Exactly. So we have a nice little, and I don't think, did I get to show you the lab at all down there?
We just walked through it. You were talking about that's about to be kind of expanded a little bit.
There's talk about maybe trying to do something there. So maybe I think we're close to maybe doing something there. So I say 9, 8.5, 9 different trades. So those trades that I mentioned are what we offer at the school.
Okay.
And most of that is based on the economics and the demographics. The union, the electricians union is strong, and the plumbing union is strong. But where we see that we need the most need to service our builders and contractors, or heavy equipment, those trades are in the highest demand. So while we're a nonprofit, we're still we've got to run it as a business, of course. And so supply and demand is a everyday
So I've heard you mention a couple times up there in December when I was up there, and then out in the shop 2 or 3 hours ago, a 6 million job deficit in the trades looming, or here now, or coming, or what's the statistic on that?
Well, I'm riffing a bit off of information that's been kicked around since 2008, 2009.
It's all right.
From all estimates, it looks like it might be worse. So from when I first heard, it was about 5.8 million jobs were needed to be filled across the U.S. and
in the trades.
In the trades, yes. And name a trade, that's what we're talking about, from electricians to road workers to you name it. Pipe layers to all of this. And so we need 5.8 million workers. there's jobs that are available, but the owners of these companies, the bosses, they need qualified people to put into those jobs, and we just don't have that.
Wow. So talk to us about the students. First of all, are they coming right out of high school? I'm guessing some portion maybe not have finished high school and are using a GED or...
You name it, they're coming in from every direction. Yeah, so I've had students from 17 to, I think my oldest student right now is 65.
Really? I was going to ask if people are there to start a second career, later in life, and that
maybe
answers
a third.
Really?
Interesting.
And
it's the same for them. They can go there and learn carpentry at no tuition cost, no expense out of their pocket.
Wow, it makes me want to move to Portland and enroll.
I know. That is just amazing. I mean, I saw on the website you're part of the curriculum is actually building. Looks like you're putting together an indoor framing house shed. Talk about that a little bit. What's the hands-on portion of that like, especially with framing, which is kind of a bulky trade,
space,
you know?
Yeah. Well, we and space does get a little limited in that way. We have a lot of students. So and right now we're actually thinking about adding another carpentry course because the ratio can get a little tough there. Right. With the ratio from instructor to apprentice. Yeah. It's kind of tough, as you know, if you got a well-oiled 2 or 3 man crew and you're flying.
Yeah. But how do you keep 8 guys busy?
Yeah. How do you keep 30 busy is what I'm looking at. So, but that's a good problem to have. And that's a recent problem. So we're making adjustments to bring about another class to bring those classes maybe down to maybe 20, 15 or 20. And that's fairly manageable, but we have to set up different, if we're working on floor systems, right? We've got to literally go out in the back alleyway out there, and we've got several floor systems being built. So we got bunks of 2 by 10, 2 by 8, whatever we're going to use, and have all that stuff dropped off. We put it together, we tear it apart or deconstruct.
Yeah.
And
with Burke bars.
And so that I know I'm not totally answering your question, but we have ongoing projects where we'll frame something up, both steel stud or conventional wood style, Western stack framing, and we'll just go through each process from starting with Pythagoras and working our way up, and then just going through each step. I've got them out there with the layout stick and all of the production
that's really,
framing.
Really a valid way to do it. You don't have to be on a project where you start with the footings and work all the way to the top complete. You don't have to build a house to understand the processes, to have had a look at the processes, so when you're responsible to do something, you have a good idea of how to jump in. By the time they've seen some number of these processes, they begin to see how what they learned earlier applies to what they're being shown now, and the whole tradesman begins to emerge. Right?
And that's where your channel comes in so handy very often, because I've got 4-hour chunks in the evening with these apprentices, and sometimes we just can't get through the curriculum in a timely fashion to where we can go out and actually get stuff built. So a lot of the time I'll pull in, okay, Scott's building a wall.
Yeah. See what he did there?
And I'll stop it, and you'll call it one thing, and I'll say, and you might hear it called A, B, C, D, E, or F as well, right?
And here's another way to do that.
And you see a couple, sometimes you see a couple lights go on. Oh yeah, I'm doing that on the job site right now. So, the visual aid is huge. So when we can't get our hands on out in the shop, which is, we've got to work with that.
That's awesome.
But, so people like yourselves, and I put a healthy dose of Larry Hahn in there when we're doing. He just builds that house over and over in my classroom.
You bet. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, and I'm on thriftbooks.com, so I'm trying to get people. I'm trying to get them to go buy the books and really get an understanding of the process, because as you know, as builders, we're making and breaking our life on modules or models, paradigms, right? And a lot of people coming in, they're really freaked out about math, And once they've realized the formula and they do it a few times, it's just riding a bike. And then they can apply that with their hands finally, not just on the whiteboard or the blackboard. It's
what do you say to kids who are worried about math? I know that's a real, like, it's like a dentist, you know, it's like, you got, some people start sweating just when they think about it. And I'm guessing you have a large chunk of your students who have to overcome that to some extent.
Yes.
What's that like?
It is, it's not so bad. I like them. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag here, but I like them to have a little bit of honest nervousness. I think it's good. Performance anxiety about math is a huge deal. Having butterflies, and it's good to feel that, because I mean, let's face it, on a job site, you want to get everything with one shot, one kill. And every time you don't, that's money out.
Yep.
Right.
That's right. And eventually it costs your job.
Exactly. So I think a little bit of stage fright nervousness is really good, because it's usually the best teacher at the end of the day. And those guys will either, guys, girls, people will flourish. And those who are just not feeling it, or they're not there yet, they'll either find their way out or find a different path for themselves. So
or grab another gear.
Yeah, exactly. Find another way. So long and short of it, I try to let them feel a little scared about it, and then I help them to realize that it's really not scary, and we just try to identify the math that's necessary for one task.
Yeah, that seems like a big difference compared to maybe high school or even middle school, where you're learning and doing math that you cannot connect with how it's going to be in your life. Yeah. Whereas that's the only reason you're talking about math is because how it's going to connect with their job at work tomorrow, or maybe like the next hour when they walk over to the little mini job site. So that's got to be almost refreshing for kids who have been afraid of math, or maybe just skeptical, to be like, okay, now this person is actually going to show me how I'm actually going to use it in real life. That would be kind of positive, I think, at least from where I was with math.
So let me throw this out, and I'll share this with you, after the podcast. But I've met a guy through the channel named Steve Ellis, and he's in Texas somewhere, and he has geeked out about as far as you can go with math and carpentry. I've had full range of access to construction math. I've been able to manipulate as much as I've ever needed to, pretty much. But I mean, he's taken that right up to the maximum application all over the place. And he's gotten a lot of personal satisfaction out of it. And frankly, he's gone further with math than I ever felt compelled to. There was a certain point for me where I began to shortcut it with scribing and with jigs and templates. But man, he really gets it, and he can write about it beautifully. I'm going to connect you with Steve, because he sent me some long texts and some emails with some fascinating applications of ratio and proportion and trig and geometry that is just 2 or 3 steps beyond where most of us stop on the job site. And with phones now, so your calculator's always in your pocket, he's really mastered that, to where boom, the phone comes out, you're not talking, but he solves it. And I'm late enough in the game that I'm only going to be able to actually embrace a part of this additional opportunity he's handed to me, because I've got workarounds that for me are usually quite quicker now. But I'm going to connect you with Steve. I think you'll enjoy talking to him. He loves to. He's so passionate about this, right? So you guys will have some good conversations, I think.
I'd love to connect with him. On that note too, I'd like to throw out a hats off to Jason Ramey at the school. You mentioned Steve might be geeking out on math. I would say Jason's right there. He's really a math whiz in the way of breaking it down to its most simple process, and just he's so excellent at showing, especially the later end guys, because he does a lot of the finished carpentry. He's kind of our master carpenter in house, and his math skills are awesome in that he can take the most complex ideas and break it down into very simple process of and really gets people to achieve on a whole nother level. And we'll start out, like you said, at basic math, and by year 4 they're doing trig and
practical trigonometry. What a tool
so
that
cool.
is. What a tool.
Yeah. There's a great book out there, and it's been reprinted quite a bit by Will Holiday. Hopefully I don't get this wrong. It's the Roof Cutter's Bible.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful book. It's really well written.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also Math to Build On. It's a pretty basic
title.
book, but it's written by builders for builders.
So what's that like? You were a builder for a lot of years and presumably worked with a lot of guys and employees, probably new ones who didn't have a classroom formal start in the trades. And now you are sending out students who do. So what's that like? I mean, there's probably guys listening who are kind of like, well, I could spend all these hours in the classroom, or I could go make money and learn on the job. So, how does that compare? You've seen both sides of it now.
I think nothing really beats the school environment, honestly.
Yeah.
Because if I had, while I was running work at that level, which was, only a few years ago, had I been more involved with the school then, I would have been sending all of my employees to the school.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Some apprentices show up and they're apprehensive about it.
Yeah.
They're just there because they got a job, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just telling the truth. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with job placement. But even just that, and just sitting there compulsorily and, staring at the board while I rattle on about, Torx versus Phillips, they're getting more out of just that than not putting anything else into it, drinking a 6-pack and watching football.
Yeah. I've often wished that I would have had So I got a pretty good construction education over a long time, but I have often wished, it would have been good for me to have gone through an apprenticeship, some sort of a structured curriculum for a while. I had a good friend that he and I only barely remain in contact, who taught in the union apprenticeship program down in the Bay Area someplace. And man, he really got his head packed full of a lot of real specific technical answers that are handy to have. And I've often thought, that probably would have been worthwhile. And I was out on the job making a paycheck, but man, if there would have been an opportunity to do that and at nights go sit in a class and be exposed to those things that you might not run into until weeks or months or years down the road, why not?
4 hours once a week. I just tell the apprentices, look, it's not school. It's an extension of your work on that day. I'm not an instructor or a teacher. I am, but
I'm your boss for 4 hours.
Exactly. And that's where we keep it. Because the soft skills are really what we're trying to hammer home.
Yeah.
We could teach them how to cut anything, do the math, do all these hard skills, but they end up keeping their job or losing their job based on their soft skills. So
how do you teach soft skills, or what soft skills are you teaching?
I just harp on them.
like basic, like be on time type of skills, or how does that work with the classroom?
Well, I can just talk about it. I'm not there on the job site to say, well, don't cut it this way, hold the saw this way. I'm not there with them every day. But I've been getting pretty positive feedback that people are coming back and telling me, hey, you know what, that happened to me today. You know what you were talking about last week?
Personal interaction or something?
Yeah, that happened. Or, hey, I was doing this and this happened. So much of what we do in the trades is really a lifestyle, because it's not something you can learn overnight. And the people who succeed are the people who embrace it as their new culture or that lifestyle. Because if you don't, the learning curve is steep. It's vertical, and especially if you want to change your tax bracket in 3 to 5 years, you got to get on it. So I harp on them about soft skills.
Like which soft skills? Which ones do you harp on?
Well, like the ones you just hit. Just be to work on time. And then I'll go as far into the weeds as make sure you got toilet paper under your bench seat.
Wow.
Have some rain gear.
Yeah.
Roll it up, a clean pair of socks and even some underwear. Matter of fact, always have a change of clothes for that matter. I mean, these guys are down in trenches. They're covered in mud. You don't know what they're coming in.
Yeah.
All of that stuff that someone just coming out.
Wear boots.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, well, in most of the cases, that's you
given.
can't even work on a job site now without a set of boots, which, I'll go, and so I have a military background. My family's military. I spent some time in the Marine Corps, and so for me, the apprenticeship thing is it's just military. Let's face it, everyone's got a different style of communication. So, and we get in my classes, there's a lot of psychology 101 going on there. That's not what I'm teaching, of course, but the job site, being flexible and, not taking things too personal and all this kind of stuff. Really, you've got maybe the wife calling, your child's sick, you have other family issues, and you're trying to get up at 3:30 in the morning to be somewhere, by on time at 6 in the morning, and you're not used to all of this. It's raining, it's snowing, there's traffic, all these things that you just really hadn't considered. You're like, well, I just wanted a job, right? And these things start to beat you up, and pretty soon you're starting to fall out. You start not showing up to class, or you start getting caught spinning a little yarn between the job site and the school and this kind of thing. So the soft skills really help people to understand that they're stepping into a different world.
I've been told that 80% of intelligence is memory. Okay, now I don't know if that's true, but I know that in construction in a lot of areas, if you know the terminology, if you can speak the language, you're way ahead of the people that can't. And so if you have 4 hours a week just to teach them the language and the terms so that they know what the conversations are about, that's a huge head start, that you're not sitting on the sideline afraid to ask what they're really talking about and betray your ignorance.
I saw on the website that you guys have classes about leadership, and that's kind of one of the areas that you're paying attention to. Is that, I'm sure it's the soft skill, that's a part of the soft skills, but regarding leadership specifically, what's the punchline for kids in the trades, and how is that framed for them?
So you're referring to what I call retail classes, right? So the tuition free part is different for those that are on their journeyman path, and then we host a lot of other classes that you actually come and you pay for those,
like CE, like continuing education kind
exactly. So there's like crew leadership. We do OSHA training, flagging. We do all-terrain forklift training. Different classes that we do, first aid, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, that's so cool.
Plan reading,
I saw that.
estimating. There's a lot of really nice classes there that are, you get a certificate of completion. Looks great on a resume. Some really quality instructors there.
And if a company wants their employee to be trained on something, they just send them there, and they don't have to stress about
very
it.
often. A lot of the training agents, that are affiliated with us, they'll send people there to do, forklift training or something like that, if they're not hosting it themselves on site, which they do that often too. So it's kind of pick and choose a little bit in that way. But as far as crew leadership, that class, I think Miss Judy Betts is teaching that now, but that is a lot about the superintendent, your foreman, someone who's delegating work and how they interact with all different types of people. That's a big part of what that is. And meeting a lot of the OSHA standards, safety standards, and quality controls that would be, you need to be compliant. In today's job sites, especially, public works job sites.
Especially public works. Ouch. Now, you had a dad, I heard you say. And a granddad.
Oh, yeah.
But a big percentage of the people in your classes have not had that advantage, I expect.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so that's part of the Jiminy Cricket role that you're doing.
Yes.
You're providing a dad model for some of those guys and women.
Maybe so, yeah.
Important.
In some, I would say that straightforward, yes, and others, they're further along in their...
Sure, the 65-year-old doesn't need a dad anymore.
No, he's like, come on, just give me that. Are we going to take this test or what?
What's the code?
It's code?
No, I get all types. We've got people that are in there. I've got one individual is a scientist. I forget what she was, maybe a biologist or something like that. I had another guy who was a psychology. I think he either a bachelor's or master's degree. I forget.
Right.
all colors, all walks of life come through the door, and in that way,
real
it's really
diversity.
Cool. Yes,
real diversity,
Yeah.
not a politically
and I think
correct
you saw
interpretation.
that. I think you saw that at this school,
diversity.
and it's a really very cool thing.
Yeah, it is.
Are there some really common misconceptions you have from new students or parents who are kind of feeling it out, from what people think of a trade school versus what it is, or maybe even what people think of working in the trades versus what it actually is?
They are really just being hit and hit and hit and hit and hit with so many multiple layers of lifestyle shift.
Yeah.
New stuff.
Your
Yeah.
back is sore.
Yep.
Wow.
This
It's going
hurts.
to take you 6 months to build those muscles.
Nobody cares if you got a sliver, son.
Yeah, exactly. Don't put plastic bags on your feet. Okay. That will eat up your toes and tear up the webbing,
Yeah.
you're going to have calluses on top of calluses, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be cut and you're going to be cold. You're going to be hot, and make sure you hydrate. All of these things are happening, and they're just under such a life shift. And it's exciting to watch the people really embrace it, because let's face it, the money's pretty good.
Yeah.
And because of that, they can see it through the next day.
In the Portland metro area, so we're down here in Southern Oregon, and it's a different pay scale down here. But we have prevailing wage, Bacon Davis, Boley, all of that, and those rates are what? They're in the probably $28 to $48 an hour range, something like that for the qualified tradespeople that go out. So some number of your people are just working private sector, though.
Yes.
Would you say it's 60% of that or 70% of that, or what would you throw a number at that? What kind of money are these young people making when they get out there and are pulling their own weight?
I don't have the exact metrics on that, and I think that again is probably a better question for someone like Katrina at the school. But I think it's safe to say that we're on average coming in right about $20 an hour. And, if you figure from 17 to 35, that's not bad.
That is not bad.
That's base pay. You're
Free
completely
tuition.
wet behind the ears.
Yep, $20, man. How are you going to beat that?
But that's the base pay. And even if they're working on an independent job for a time, usually all of these people will end up on a prevailing wage job. I think about 50 to 60% of the time. So that means they're getting time and a half above that base rate. Really not bad. It's really not bad. And that's another, I try to get them to put together a 3 to 5 year plan, right?
Yeah.
What took you maybe 10, 15 years to get on that power curve and learn it, hard knocks. They've got the information there. What they need to try to catch up on is the actual execution of the work and being able to identify the models in which to pour a slab, build a wall,
Pull their weight,
put up drywall, whatever it may be. Yeah. So in 3 to 5 years, we've seen people from 17 at 20 putting down a down payment on their first home, debt free.
Wow.
That's the kicker.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No college tuition debt hanging out there.
Yeah.
No student debt.
And
Whammo.
right. And one of the first things we were talking about in here was kind of those calculations. Is you've got back to the 5.8 million or the 6 million people that are needed for jobs across America right now. You have people who have gone to school and they are not using their degree. That's 75% is the statistic.
Of college graduates are not using their degree.
75% are not using the degree they went to college to get.
And 2 of those years were just general ed anyways, where they weren't actually learning even what their degree was supposedly teaching them.
And they get out and they go to have to deal with the very competitive job market in a low paying or, a pretty low paying job.
Yeah.
But what's the real stinker is that they're paying back that student loan. So they're in debt. They're making not the best wage
Yeah.
And they're giving it to pay off their loan. And a lot of them they're defaulting on those loans.
Yeah.
Or trying.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to, it's federal now.
Yeah.
You're stuck.
They got to be, there's got to be like some real positive energy among these kids who found this school and are sitting there like connecting the dots like, oh, okay, so then I get this prevailing wage job and all of a sudden I'm making $50 an hour and here's contractors in every city who are making millions of dollars a year, with 25 trucks. The sky is the limit. There's got to be some, real optimism among these kids to just have a direction like that as opposed to, meandering through college or
punching in a McDonald's.
I think they are starting to really recognize, and I don't think it's any magic wand that we have at the school necessarily. I think the basic economics of the fun jobs are not paying so well, and the high demand for skilled labor is just driving the wages up. So I mean, just on a simple economic platform, they're doing better than they would be doing otherwise. And then even if they were thinking, well, I'm only making maybe $5 more than I was making before I came to do construction, but how much more resourceful you feel once you've completed building a project. You're like, wow, I can do that, and that's a whole nother detail there. So I think they are turned on. I think there's a lot of positive energy there, and I see a lot of people with tired but happy faces in the classroom, and they're making it. They're getting through the program.
Sometimes the personality of an instructor or a teacher or just someone else and your personality line up in just a way that you can like really connect. And I'm sure you've had that with certain students and others just didn't connect. And so any school, any job site, and just life, there's that luck component where hopefully you can find somebody at some point in your life you can really connect to and just absorb. And when you're on the student or the apprentice side and you just got to like just soak everything you can out of that individual because man, that's lucky if you find that.
While you can have a great model of a school, it's about how you support the people who work there and what their livelihood is and how integrated they are into that culture, the lifestyle, and if there's real meaning there. And for me, it's a beautiful thing to see these people turn on and begin to take it seriously. And I try to come at them with an entrepreneurial piece too. While they're going to work for somebody else, I try to get them to not fall asleep, right? Because a lot of people get this complacency that kicks in when they start making better money than they had been making.
Right.
And they just kind of turn off, or they go buy that TV and the rims, and they get prevailing wage, more money than they've ever seen before. Yeah. And I really try to get them to hold on to that, build that 6 months ahead and start having some financial discipline.
I think there's a lot of people who wash out of the trades because they start in those apprenticeship years and they're doing like the not fun stuff, the heavy lifting and the cleanup and just kind of keep busy. And it's like common words out of their mouth. I don't want to do this the rest of my life. Because they visualize, well, if you're let's say an electrician, what you do is sweep up and bend over and pick up heavy rolls of wire and run wire. And I don't want to, and it's almost like, it's hard to kind of shift and think like, actually, when electricians are in the middle of their career at the end, they're not actually doing that. That's what their apprentices are doing. They are making deals and they're solving problems and they're negotiating or they're laying out or they are not doing what you're doing right there. But that's tough to, like, it's part of being a young person and predicting what the future will be like. But it's not, a life in the trades is not the same as your first 2 years in the trades. Yeah. Do you have any insight on what you think are like the big holes in the trades that are needing the most specific training and workers, or in your program, which ones get the most quickest placement and that type of thing?
I think laborers and carpenters are in high demand almost all the time. Yeah. And I think a big misnomer or a misunderstanding is that how important a carpenter is and how wide-ranging that skill set is in that trade. As carpenters, you are pouring concrete, steel studs, roof systems, wall systems, floor systems, rebar, steel. I mean, you're touching it all. And I think the person who's really interested in becoming a superintendent, a manager, crew leader, these sorts of things, I push for them. I'm a carpenter, so I'm bias in that way, but
Yeah.
I think it's been really rewarding. You really have to know structure and code.
Mm-hmm.
And when those lights turn on, you can draw, you can do estimates, you could you can get into the legal field of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many offshoots
good
in the
point.
industry there because of what you have to be responsible for as an apprentice carpenter to a journeyman to foreman, superintendent, whatever it may be, project manager. I mean, I like to impress on my carpenters, especially, that you're the long end of the long arm of the law in a way, because everything we're doing is based on, it's all legal.
Yeah.
It's based on 3 or 4 different codes at any one given time.
Right.
And you've got inspections, and it's all legally documented, and very often ends up in a court somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Job logs are important.
Job logs, RFIs, all this stuff.
Liability.
It's the liability, and then also understanding the difference between liability and actual efficiency are completely different. And the reasons why we use one type of wood over another, or these, a lot of it's liability. Mm-hmm. And very often it's doesn't make rational, immediate sense, whereas it's liable. So I put a lot into the carpentry program in that way, because I think carpenters tend to really sprout wings if they really get involved, and they could end up in so many other fields.
Yeah.
And the construction industry has so many other possible jobs
It's kind
that
of,
you offshoot off of.
I always regretted not becoming an engineer, because an engineer has such a wide range of options. Every door is open in construction if you're an engineer. Well, a carpenter is kind of a paralegal, paramedic. A carpenter is a para-engineer.
Yes.
And the more math he has, and the more he's seen the 4 basic food groups of construction: concrete, CMU, steel, and wood, the more he's seen how these 4 basic food groups are integrated, and what you just said, the doors fly open and they sprout wings, and they can go almost anywhere because they are builders.
Yes.
They are not an electrician. Nothing wrong with electricians, Sparkies. Okay, I love you, Sparky. But the fact is, if you're going to be a builder, you have to have built something. And so I like thinking of carpenters as para engineers.
I agree. And in the last decade now, we're starting to see the emergence of applied sciences, right? So, and that's the stuff we've been doing intuitively, right? We're pounding nails. I mean, in the military, it's ballistics, right? I mean, these are real, no BS sciences, and a lot of them are on an intuitive level, and but they are applied all the time, and it's a little bit of that ghost in the machine stuff. It's that carpenter's eye. It's that. It's that the 1,000-yard stare. These kinds of things come out of that field. So now you can actually, and that brings me back to another component of the programs here. That 13, don't quote me on that, but I believe it's 13 consumer colleges or colleges here in Oregon will accept the Journey Workers card from the Northwest College of Construction, and I think they're good for up to 22 credits. If you want to take it a little further and get your
construction
usually
to
if I'm not misspeaking, and again, it's a good question for our bully person, is that it would be toward an applied science degree, and a lot of colleges, most of the PCC affiliates are doing that. I think,
I hired a drywall guy once who had been a drywall just for like a day job, and I was asking him, "Hey, what's it like being a drywall guy?" And he was so proud. He's like, "It's the best trade." And I was like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "Yeah, because you need the least tools." He had an air compressor, a hopper, and a knife. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense." And kind of like what you're saying. The downside of that is those are also the only tools he knows how to use.
Tools he
Whereas
can use.
a carpenter, I mean, you use every tool. You gotta carry and own every tool, but there's a bonus to that. And this guy, he could use a drywall knife and a hopper and an air compressor. That's probably again. I'm not saying that's all he could use, but when you're a carpenter, you definitely get your arms around a lot.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell the listeners any specifics about how to get a hold of your school and the program, and especially if there's local kids who might be listening who are in the Portland area, how they would go about actually getting in touch with your college?
You can go to NWCOC.com. That would be the first and the easiest way.
And there's a way there to sort of apply or get in touch.
Yeah, if you go to NWCOC.com, you're going to see all of the classes that we have available. It'll talk about the programs. It has an online application form, very easy, and all the phone numbers are right there.
Yeah.
503-256-7300.
Yeah.
So I can just tell you that after being on that little campus, and it's not a big campus, but there is an atmosphere of seriousness. There's an atmosphere of intention and purposefulness, and we're not goofing around here, and we're not wasting time, and we're not throwing away any money. If I was in the greater Portland metro area, and if I was in my 20s and starting out, I would be there. And if I was raising my boys up there, and one of them had an interest in construction, I'd say, you know what, you can come work with me if you want, but I think you ought to spend a little time over there too. I felt that there was value there.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I can speak to the other instructors there. I think we'll take it pretty seriously. We come out of the trades. We either ran our own businesses or are running our own businesses to some extent. And we've all been at least project management at some point or another if we weren't running our own shop.
Real world, boots on the ground experience. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming in, Zane, and thanks for everybody for tuning in and listening. And we'll put links to these websites up in the notes of the video. Any last words from either of you about entering trades and trade schools? Actually, if there's comments we're in Oregon. If any of you viewers are in other states and have recommendations for other good trade schools in other parts of the country, put those in the comments too. Maybe we'll get a little list there to help people who are not Oregonians.
Great idea.
All right. Well, thanks again. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks.